Yo, what's up? Back at you with another video. Today we are watching a video by Daily Maverick, and they are talking about Solidarity Movement's Washington lobbying trip being big on hype, however small when it comes to details. This video is, from what I remember listening to, suggesting that these people went for a trip to go take some selfies, to go act like they are aligning themselves with the new Pope, Donald Trump, to kiss his ring, and to flex on South Africans, to suggest that there's actually things that they are doing, there's actually people they are meeting, and media invites that they are getting to spread their message. However, what we're going to see here, and there's an Easter egg in here, you'll come and get to see it. One of the media channels that they go and visit in the United States is someone that you might know. Let's just jump in and listen to what these guys are actually up to.
Afrikaner activists have been in Washington telling people about the plight of Afrikaans farmers and urging the US to lay sanctions against ANC politicians. It's caused a huge outcry in South Africa. Treason charges have been laid against them. They've been accused of spreading disinformation in the Washington corridors of power. And all of this, all the controversy, has meant an unprecedented amount of publicity towards a private organization which relies on members' fees and donations. Now, part of the alarm back home in response to this lobbying trip has been the group's claim that they met with some of America's most powerful politicians. Which got me wondering, who were these people at this incredibly hectic point in American politics, willing to carve out time to meet with a little-known organization from the tip of the African continent? I'm Rebecca Davis, senior journalist for Daily Maverick. So the delegation that went to Washington was sent by the Solidarity Movement, which, as a reminder, is an amalgamation of Afrikaner rights groups, media houses, and businesses. It includes the Solidarity Union and the lobby group AfriForum. They sent 4 guys to Washington in February: AfriForum CEO Kali Kriel, Solidarity CEO Dirk Herman, Solidarity Movement Chairman Flip Base, and Solidarity's International Relations Liaison Jaco Kleinhans. While they were in Washington, these guys enjoyed an extraordinary amount of attention from the South African media. They were on TV doing crossings from the States almost every night of their trip, telling South Africans about the message they were taking to Washington. But what they never said was exactly who they were giving this message to. They made constant vague references to meeting with highly influential figures or key decision makers, which could really be anyone. But more specifically, Kali Kriel told his ex-followers that on February 26th, the group had met with, quote, senior members of the House of Representatives Committee on Foreign Affairs. In his video, he claimed that the meeting showed it was very clear that members of this committee closely monitor what is happening in South Africa, down to already knowing what was happening with the Bella Act. On February 27th, he referred to discussions held, quote, in the US Congress with both Republicans and Democrats, which, quote, confirmed that there is currently anger among those in power in the US over the ANC leaders' reckless policies and actions.
So, Kriel is suggesting that there's a portfolio committee on South Africa in the United States there, and they are watching our bills. The COP is watching the blacks as they try to self-govern over there. The powers around the world, the white powers, who do not want to see any form of majority rule or successful possible running, any amendment to the Constitution that can make our government have teeth to bite, can make the knife sharp to cut, and provide housing so that we avoid a disaster, a dystopian situation where the rich are so rich and the poor are so poor, the bandwidth will grow larger. You all know that Time magazine cover that South Africa is famous for, the most unequal country in the world. It's on your screen there. And so it seems like this is an ambition. There's an ambition to make the country the most unequal. There are those who want to make the country ungovernable so that we reach an impasse, a place where we can't go forward. We can only stay in the same place or regress, while others who have found freedom, liberty, who have climbed further up Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those who have dealt with the basic needs, food, water, clothing, those who have dealt with love, belonging, and security, those who are now connected constantly to the internet, who have DSTV in their homes, who have electricity and fuel in their cars at all times, ones who have food in the cupboards, in the pantry, who have air conditioning in their house, who live in a gated suburb. Those who have an education, those whose houses are warm, those who have mental health, counseling and training, those whose kids have stationery fully bought and supplied, those whose children go to good schools, in warm air-conditioned cars. Those will continue to accelerate while the rest stand still.
The same evening, Kriel told ENCA, quote, "We went yesterday
to Congress, spoke to senior people there. They are angry with regard to what is happening in South Africa. It threatens property rights also of US businesses."
So these were quite specific claims. He was saying that the Solidarity movement didn't just meet with secretaries or staffers or people who work for think tanks. Kelly Kriel was saying they met with Congress members. That is the equivalent of our MPs, elected politicians to the Senate and the House of Representatives from both the Republican and Democratic parties. Now, that would really be quite something to pull off. I contacted 2 sources with experience lobbying in Washington, and they told me that your chances of getting in front of a congressman or congresswoman or senator as a private foreign group, not even a foreign political party, are minuscule. One told me it was, quote, virtually impossible. So I started off asking the Solidarity movement who they met with. They refused to say who they met. Solidarity movement spokesperson Werner Human told me, quote, "We are not going to provide the details of the individuals we met with. It will compromise the integrity of our discussions and it will expose them to bombardment by the media and exploitative political parties and individuals." That's fine. Lobbying in Washington can be a secretive, shadowy business, but it is noteworthy that the DA took its own lobbying trip to Washington round about the same time. And their international relations spokesperson, Emma Louise Powell, was happy to give much more detail about who the DA met with, which included Africa advisors at the National Security Council, Democrat senators from the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, including Chris Coons, the legislative staff director for Ted Cruz, Secretary of State Marco Rubio's key advisor. But also to note is that the DA spends serious money on lobbying in Washington, which is what you have to do. There's a site called Open Secrets, which records how much foreign entities have spent lobbying in Washington over the past year. The DA is on there, SA Tourism is on there. Solidarity Movement is not on there. So what do we actually know about the Solidarity Movement trip from social media? We know that they visited the White House. They posted selfies from what seems to be the Eisenhower building in the White House complex. Kelly Kriel posted a selfie in front of a plaque reading Committee.
They're taking selfies, that's what they're doing, and then they went and laid on the beach and got a tan.
Plaque reading Committee on Foreign Affairs, which is a House of Representatives committee. They also posted a picture after a meeting at an LA restaurant with right-wing journalist Joel Pollak. That was the sole visual evidence on social media of a meeting held by this team.
You all know Joel Pollak. He's being suggested to be the ambassador of the United States in South Africa, and Ibrahim Rasool of the Americans here to be the next one. And he's a journalist. Can you hear that? Imagine the implication of sending a megaphone, a newspaper, a spinner to come and be ambassador. Do you know how happy Ronaldo Gous would be to have this guy living in Cape Town, to be in the block? Do you know how Byron Shepherd from Morning Coffee would be so happy to be sitting alongside the guy from Breitbart? Is that the newspaper that he runs? Yeah, that. Let's keep going. That's who they met with. See, they're now providing pictures of who they met with, and it's a friend in the media.
Other than a video posted by Jaco Kleinans of him being interviewed by a right-wing podcaster in a Starbucks.
Do you see who that is? That's the Easter egg. I told you. That's Colonel Chris Wyatt over there. They met with Joel Pollak and they met with Colonel Chris Wyatt. There he is. And Daily Maverick is calling him a right-wing podcaster. So, ladies and gents, I hope you're starting to see and understand and appreciate how South Africa and its media is going to change. How the first movers in this new dispensation are already the right-wingers. They're setting up media. They're waiting for the world that is going to come. They saw it in the United States. We've been seeing it in the United States ever since Trump's first administration. He started saying that's fake news. And we do know about fake news. There has been a growth of fake news from unreliable outlets, from journalism that is not credible. Thanks to cheap media, thanks to a decline in the cost of being on the internet, running a business on the internet, media business on the internet, there's been fake news coming. You understand? And with him declaring certain people to be fake news, he vouched and gave credibility to others as being true news. Outlets like Fox News, the Tucker Carlsons, the Sean Hannitys, the Lauren... Who was that right-wing white woman journalist who was speaking about farm murders in South Africa back then? Lauren South or something like that. And now with Colonel Chris Wyatt being called a right-wing journalist, speaking on South African issues. Recently, we also saw Rob Hersov go on what is said to be a right-wing podcast by, is it Dave Rubin? The channel is called The Rubin Report. And now the suggestion of Joel Pollak, also said to be a right-wing podcaster, being suggested to come and be placed in Cape Town, the home of the right wing. And if you've been listening to Ronaldo, you'll have heard him say those are mainstream media. He's stereotyping. He's demonizing. It's in the same way. Let me drop that. He's stereotyping. He's saying, look at those people there. They are weird. Mainstream media is something old, archaic. What you need is us, the fresh ones on YouTube. So you're starting to see now the emergence of the right. They are 5 years ahead. The left, I don't know where that is. Could Daily Maverick be the left as they are reporting the others to be the right? Or are they neutral? Are they proper mainstream media? I remember the Daily Maverick being a former member of the EFF. I remember in Trump's first administration when the EFF was on the serious rise, the EFF was at war with the Daily Maverick. I used to see Daily Maverick's posters, of the EFF. They always chose one where Julius is looking scary. And I understood that to be some kind of swart gevaar. We know white people tend to do that in their reporting. White media tends to do that when they put up a black politician or whatsoever. They make them look monstrous. They choose the worst picture that they can find of that person. And so, have they had a change of heart? Have they had a change of spirit? Have they been renewed as a newspaper by the blood of Christ? Or are they just playing around, playing both sides?
There's this false perception that South Africa can play on the same level as America. And I think there's a false perception from Ramaphosa and other people in government that they portray to South Africans, especially to their constituency, that South Africa is still an important global role player. That time is past. It's finished. The fact that South Africa is the chair of the G20 doesn't mean that we're a superpower. We're no superpower.
Well, the fact that you're in BRICS doesn't mean you're a full player in BRICS.
Not at all, And I think what the ANC either don't understand or don't want to acknowledge is how other countries play them. Yeah, they're, in a sense, useful idiots, the South African government.
So who are these high-ranking Democrat and Republican senators, congressmen, and congresswomen the Solidarity Movement team say they met? Now, Creel, as I said, tweeted that the delegation had met with members of the House of Representatives Foreign Affairs Committee. This is possible, but it definitely was not an official hearing because there is no record of a Solidarity Movement meeting with the Foreign Affairs Committee on the committee's schedule for this year. Then I took a look at the 28 members of that committee, who, remember, Callie Creel said are so invested in South African affairs that they even know about the Bella Bill. I discovered that not a single member of that committee has tweeted about any reference to the Solidarity Movement or to the supposed plight of Afrikaners at any point this year, despite posting multiple times a day on X about other issues, in a climate where, for context, US senators and representatives are currently posting in an almost frenzied fashion about their current meetings and activities, either to curry favor with President Donald Trump or to distance themselves from him. During this period, the members of the Foreign Affairs Committee tweeted about meeting with delegations from Tunisia and expressed concern about political intolerance in Uganda. But by contrast, just one member of that committee has tweeted any reference to South Africa at all this year. That was Joe Wilson, a Republican representative from South Carolina, who recently introduced a proposed bill to manufacture a new $250 note featuring the face of Donald Trump because, quote, the most valuable bill should be for the most valuable president. Wilson tweeted on 3rd of February, some weeks before the Solidarity visit, that, quote, South Africa aligns itself with Iranian terrorists, harassing Jewish civilians while pretending to be a major world power. Cutting off South Africa is long overdue. Trump will fix it. On 24th February, again before the Solidarity visit to Congress, he tweeted, quote, working against peace is the new platform of the African Union and their diabolical attempt to sabotage the Abraham Accords, harming the achievements of President Trump. Israel's African alliances remain unbroken at the hands of failed dictator Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, this reflects something that is true of the wider US Congress. What little pushback there has been against South Africa up until now is not about white South Africans, the Bella Act, white genocide, farm murders, or much else except Israel. It's about South Africa taking Israel to the International Court of Justice.
Of course, the statements with regard to ties with Iran and Hamas angers them. So there is going to be action against South Africa, and as loyal South Africans, we need to try and avert this to say, if you please don't punish orderly people.
Who else might the Solidarity movement have been meeting with? Two international relations specialists I spoke to said that probably the most impactful possible body would be the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. But a US source with direct knowledge of the committee's activities told me last week no meeting with the Solidarity movement had taken place. There's also no record of any scheduled engagement on the committee's website. Its members have been tied up instead, recently hearing about, quote, the malign influence of the People's Republic of China at home and abroad. Now, the last time Congress had a hearing on South Africa was relatively recently, in 2023. And those who addressed it were Professor Anthony Carroll, journalist Redi Klabi, and Good Governance Africa's Chris Maraleng. So despite the Solidarity movement's claims that they have spent years cultivating the ear of Washington insiders, in other words, those relationships had clearly not borne sufficient fruit less than 18 months ago for Creel & Co. to wangle an invitation. But that was, of course, under Joe Biden's presidency. The second Trump presidency has ushered in a new climate, one which is even more fervently pro-Israel, and one which is opposed to any mention of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Suddenly, South Africa is a very useful foil, being framed, to quote Tucker Carlson's interview with former AfriForum CEO Ernst Roets, as, quote, what happens when you take DEI seriously?
Well, I can guarantee you that when I get back home, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble for listening to you. I don't know why, though.
In other words, South Africa's post-democracy governance issues are being used to legitimize a racist agenda in the US. And figures like the Solidarity delegation may indeed find, as a result,
the post-governance issues are giving reason for a racist campaign against black people in the United States. So it is being reported that the black people have squandered their opportunity, they've squandered their wealth. Y'all remember when they were on top. Y'all remember when they was rich, right? Y'all remember when they were educated, right? Now, generations on, they've lost their education. Y'all remember when they used to live somewhere in the middle class? Now, they've been reduced to poverty again. So clearly, they've lost the advantage and we've gained something. The truth is that life has never changed for the ordinary black person. The government and the ANC, that organization, is something very different to the black people. And I understand that the ANC lacks a will to really be radical and transformative because it's been diluted it's been infiltrated by neoliberals. It's been balanced out. They've been neutralized. The kind of change that South Africans need, the kind of money required, that's also another problem. The white taxpayers there cannot be the ones who are footing the bill, and it's their money that is the budget for raising such a large population of black people. The taxman is apparently not receiving money in full, or revenue collection is declining. And so there would have to be radical means like sovereign wealth funds, nationalization, expropriation of large institutions and properties, so that something can start to happen. But the ANC is stuck. They are in an impasse. They've been wedged inside this little corner where they can't even back themselves out. And they are running out of money. And so it's looking like this is the final whistle. The black person's hope is gone. And that hope was the ANC. There was no EFF or any other party the black person could vote for in 1994 and onwards. The reputation of white people for black people to become liberal and capitalists and adopt their thinking on that side was just not an option, especially with people being uneducated. I believe black people should have been taught capitalism, how to participate in it, while maybe they are being hyped up with dreams of communism. Like I understand that the ANC, you can clearly see it by the alignment with Russia and the Chinese, that there's communism over here. There's ideologues, strong ones, who believe in that approach. And you can kind of see why that would work, why nationalizing and being a big government might work if that big government wasn't run by corrupt people. However, I'm saying it's okay. You are a zealot of communism and we're coming out of apartheid. We've now had a democratic election. You're still singing communism from the first time you caught that philosophy. But now, make the black people aware of the system of capitalism that is currently working for the whites. Give them an option to say, look, we put both systems on the table. Learn and think about them. Ponder about that. If you don't have much of an education, just go learn about Karl Marx and learn about proponents, if you can, of capitalism. Listen to Noam Chomsky and go listen to a capitalist. Go listen to Donald Trump. Go read his books from way back. Think big and kick ass. But people have only been given the dream of communism changing their lives, and I'm upset because capitalism is a one-man weapon where one man can fight his fight. Communism and socialism is a military, an army. We give our powers to the state. That's how we militarize. We don't fight on the street. We give our full power to the state. We allow them to take rights, property rights, to own companies that would have been privately owned, to make the benefits of private individuals be the benefit of the public. But hey, since 1994, people have said what they said. They've stuck to their guns, and others have stuck to their guns on the other side. And now it looks like the whole country has failed black people and their government. And the truth is that the black person was denied a proper education by the apartheid, and the ANC communist government mixed with neoliberals didn't provide the black person an option to say, yo, if we're not working for you, you can go a separate independent route where you'll be a man governing your own affairs. It's possible. They've said, depend on us. And for all of that, the AfriForums and the Solidarities have gone to the United States. They've tied the black people and their government, tied them with one rope, and now they're throwing us all in the fire. And I'm happy at the current moment to have realized capitalism and personal pursuit, so that while others may be drowning, really, I may have some hope for myself and my kids. I'm not going to stand to fall here waiting for a government.
That some new doors are open to those willing to tell stories about anti-white discrimination. In his Starbucks interview, Kleinhans said, quote, "We're going to work with the White House on the implementation of Trump's executive order. We have an open door to influence." Well, perhaps. But South Africans might also want to be a bit skeptical of the scale of influence and access this private members group is claiming to have on and to the corridors of power in Washington.
Ladies and gentlemen, hope you like, hope you comment, hope you share, and hope you definitely subscribe and you keep watching. I'll see you next time.